Hi, very good evening. Please confirm the audio and video streaming. We'll go ahead with our final live session of this week. Okay, so very good evening, each and every one of you. So today's weekend live session, it's special because it's weekend. It's special because Toffee is joining us today. So we'll go ahead with our case-based discussion session 4. So last live session, we discussed about lactose intolerance. We have seen several aspects of the same, and we provided exclusive reference material in your e-classes, biochemistry, as well as general medicine section. In fact, in biochemistry section of e-classes, we have created a separate subsection called case-based discussions. So you can check out that subsection where you'll find these video links along with the reference materials, right? So also, I'm glad that many of you attending live are submitting your homework questions or assignment work. Just keep this consistency and momentum going. So in today's live session, we'll come up with another case-based or context-based questions, and then we'll also provide you some homework questions. And the objectives of these sessions is to make sure that we're dissecting these case-based discussions and simplifying them as much as possible. And in the process, trying to learn so many aspects related to that particular case or context. And as I keep on saying, learning is fun if we're doing it in the right way. If learning is not fun, then what's the point in doing it? If learning is boring, this is what exactly happens, especially in our offline classrooms. And for that matter, even on online platforms or classrooms, isn't it? Toffee, please wake up. See, Toffee, if you're not interested, you can just sleep on the bench, okay? Yeah. So Toffee is going to take adequate rest, and it's going to take this live session as an opportunity to sleep at deepest level possible. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's proceed. And as I keep on reminding, in every session, before we start any discussion, make sure that you have your customized notes and enter various important key points, which we'll be discussing in the process, right? And before we start, we have the following courses coming up towards NEET MDS 2022 and 2023, Crash Course and Mission 12 Badge, respectively. You can find all the details on our website, ptbdacademy.com. So this is the case or context which we have. So check it out. A 32-year-old male complains of abdominal pain and has been admitted in a hospital. In fact, we have been looking at this term abdominal pain or pain in abdomen for the past 2 or 3 case-based sessions. Again, another case of abdominal pain has been admitted in a hospital. He is weak and tired and has history of behavioral disturbance and epileptic form of seizures, which means there is neurological involvement, isn't it? Clinical examination reveals that the patient has an enlarged liver, and radiographic examination reveals nodular infiltration and counter abnormalities of liver, suggestive of cirrhosis. The laboratory data of the patient are given below. So you have serum copper, serum ceruloplasmin, urinary copper, the lab data along with normal reference ranges, right? In the brackets, what you find is normal reference ranges. So you can compare and evaluate this particular case, and you have the following key areas which will help you in answering this question. And as I keep on reminding, case-based questions are in fact rather easy to answer than a straightforward question, because in the form of case-based MCQ, you are being provided with several hints. And if you have that background information, you can answer case-based questions very, very confidently and very, very accurately. So you can look into the age of the patient and the chief complaint, and the various clinical features, clinical examination, that is signs, and radiographic examination, which is suggestive of liver cirrhosis. And most importantly, you have laboratory data, almost diagnostic of a particular disease or lesion. So serum copper is 60 micrograms per deciliter, where the normal range of serum copper is 100 to 200 micrograms per deciliter. Serum ceruloplasmin, which is secreted by liver, normal range is 25 to 50 milligrams per deciliter, but even that's decreasing in case of this particular patient. Urinary copper is increasing, so up to 190 micrograms per deciliter, where the normal urinary copper levels are less than 25 micrograms per deciliter. So this is the context you have. And keeping this context in mind, we'll discuss a set of 5 questions, each question with a weightage of +4 if you're right, and if you're wrong, it is -1, as you know the format. So just go through this particular context once again carefully, because you'll have a wide range of questions on the same. Let me know when you want me to pose the first question. I'll be waiting for your signal. So as you can see, a male patient, age, chief complaint of abdominal pain, and a history of behavioral disturbance and epileptic form of seizures, enlarged liver, and radiographic examination reveals nodular infiltration and contour abnormalities. Ultrasound, CT, MRI in general, right? We incorporated it under a common umbrella of the term radiographic examination. And laboratory data, where you have drop in levels of serum copper and ceruloplasmin with elevated urinary copper. Even if you don't mention the normal values in brackets, you should be able to make out the abnormalities, okay? At least that you should be well aware of. So we can find all these values, normal values, which are updated in the form of a PDF file in your physiology section of e-classes and also general medicine section of e-classes, so you can check it out. So can I proceed with our first question? Or do you want me to still wait so that you can go through this context? Toffee, Monica says hi to you. Toffee says, okay, it seems a bit harsh, Toffee. You can't say I don't care. You have to care. You are in our live session. Oh, is it? Toffee says she is in sleep and she doesn't care. So let's, Toffee, that's very rude of you. You're making me look like an idiot. Okay, yes. She's saying that I'm idiot because I'm disturbing her during her sleep. So completely justified. Sounds rational. Okay, Toffee, please carry on with your work. We will carry on with our work. Okay? Yeah. Yes, so let's go ahead with our first question. What is the most probable diagnosis? Menkes disease, occipital horn syndrome, Wilson's disease, Kupffer-Rached syndrome. I'm sure of all these options, one of the options you are very much familiar with, even though that's one of the rarest form of the disease. So which one do you think is more appropriate answer? Most probable diagnosis: Menkes disease, occipital horn syndrome, Wilson's disease, Kupffer-Rached syndrome. So which are the options do you think is more appropriate? Menkes syndrome is also something which is associated with copper metabolism. There is altered level of copper. Menkes syndrome is a disorder affecting copper levels in body, characterized by sparse, kinky hair, failure to gain weight and grow at expected rate, and deterioration of nervous system. Additional signs and symptoms include hypotonia or weak muscle tone, sagging facial features, seizures, developmental delay, and intellectual disability. Children with Menkes syndrome typically begin to develop symptoms during infancy, and survival beyond 3 years is almost difficult or impossible. Occipital horn syndrome is a less severe form of Menkes syndrome, which is also called as X-linked cutis laxa. So there are mutations in genes ATP7A in case of Menkes syndrome. So this ATP7A gene is like an entry, it codes for a protein ATP7A, which is like an entry protein in the sense it allows transfer of copper cuprous ions from the intestine into the blood. We'll look into these details a bit later. So copper is necessary for many cellular functions. As you know, it's component in several important enzymes like catalase, cytochrome oxidase, etc. So there is poor distribution of copper because of mutation in this particular gene, thereby leading to unusual distribution and the before mentioned signs and symptoms. So Menkes disease and occipital horn syndrome fall under same umbrella. Kufer-Rackeb syndrome, Parkinson's in case of children. So Kufer-Rackeb syndrome, in this there is deposition of iron even in brain. So Kufer-Rackeb syndrome is a rare autosomal recessive form of juvenile onset atypical Parkinson disease associated with supranuclear gas palsy, spasticity, and dementia. So there is neuroradiological evidence of iron deposition in basal ganglia in case of Kufer-Rackeb syndrome. So this is all additional information which I'm giving you related to those options. And as majority of you, I think almost every one of you have rightly chosen option C, Wilson's disease is the right answer. In fact, there is one characteristic ocular finding, even though it's not specific, but a very characteristic ocular finding, which we haven't intentionally incorporated in this case-based question because that would literally reveal the answer. So Wilson's disease is right answer. So if you carefully observe the context once again, you can see that there is deposition of, what Wilson's disease is all about, right? So by now you must have understood. So there is alteration in copper metabolism, the distribution of copper. And there is, in fact, Wilson's disease also called as hepatolenticular degeneration. So there is deposition of copper in brain as well as liver and other tissues like retina and several tissues of the body, leading to degeneration of liver in the form of cirrhosis, brain necrosis, lenticular degeneration, right? Hence it's called as hepatolenticular degeneration, Wilson's disease. So serum copper, serum ceruloplasmin are decreased in case of Wilson's disease, and there is increased urinary copper excretion. We'll look into more of this information right now. So I'm sure you heard of Wilson's disease. Surprising fact is that it is very, very rare. In fact, several studies have shown that the incidence of this Wilson's disease is almost 0.5 in 1 lakh cases or 30 cases per million, right? So these studies might vary, but the point is it's very, very rare. So what's happening in Wilson's disease? We'll briefly try to have a look. So Wilson's disease is a progressive hepatolenticular degeneration. There is mutation in a particular gene which codes for specific protein, which is incorporated in your homework question. So you can find out about that particular gene a bit later. So there is mutation in gene location, particularly localized to chromosome 13q14. So what's happening is there is, because of mutation in this gene, there is alteration in copper transporting ATPase, right? Because of which copper is not being able to excreted in bile, right? Leading to elevated levels in plasma initially, which gets distributed and gets deposited into various tissues. So that's basically what's happening in case of Wilson's disease. So ultrasonic presentation, CT and MRI findings, we have tried to put that in brief. The nodular degeneration or nodular accumulation or findings which we have presented previously, as you can see, they're nothing but copper getting deposited in liver, right? And because you should understand that copper in normal levels is very essential. Even though copper seems to be the villain here, it's not. Copper at normal levels is very much essential for performing various functions. Take, for example, cytochrome oxidase. It's one of the last enzymes, enzymes located in last step of electron transport chain, which is very much essential. So copper, when present in normal amounts, is essential for various normal activities. And if the levels increase, there can be oxidative stress. There can be generation of free radicals leading to oxidative stress. And this oxidative stress is known to be responsible, even though there are no confirmatory studies, this oxidative stress is known to be responsible for various ailments like Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, cancers, etc. Right? So this is some background information regarding Wilson's disease. We can find additional information about Wilson's disease, various clinical manifestations, ocular manifestations, neurological manifestations in your study material or reference material, which will be providing you in your e-classes, okay? So Wilson's disease, a progressive hepatolenticular degeneration, is an autosomal recessive disorder of copper metabolism. So because of mutation in a particular chromosome location, that is 13q14, the copper transporting ATPase is altered. This protein is altered, and as a consequence, copper is not excreted in bile, leading to its accumulation in the body, and in specific in some tissues such as brain, liver, etc. Okay, so option C is right answer. And those who have answered it as option C, award yourself +4. And I'm glad that some of you have also mentioned about this KF ring, but let's wait and discuss it further subsequently. Good. So second question, observe the illustration and identify the feature. So you can clearly see it's a fundoscopic ophthalmic examination, fundoscopic examination. In this particular image, ophthalmic examination, what do you find? What's the abnormality that you're looking into? I'm giving you a hint that there is an abnormality. Is it conjunctivitis, case of Fleischer ring or KF ring, mulberry lesions, cotton wool spots? If you remember, cotton wool spots, we have seen them in one of the previous discussions, fundoscopic examinations, in case of diabetic nephropathy, diabetic retinopathy, and hypertension associated retinopathy. We have seen cotton wool spots in that particular context. I hope you remember. And conjunctivitis, you can see there will be alteration in the color of sclera as such. What about mulberry lesions? Mulberry lesions are specifically found in a separate condition, which is called as tuberous sclerosis. So in that specific condition, we find these mulberry lesions. I haven't incorporated any of these images, but what about this in specific? Yeah, as it is obvious, you can see a ring-like structure, right? So even if you have no idea, you can find in the periphery, you can find a ring-like structure. So what is this Kayser-Fleischer ring, as most of you have rightly chosen? Option A is right answer. Well done. So Kayser-Fleischer rings. So common ophthalmologic findings in patients with Wilson's disease, but remember, this is not pathognomonic because these KF rings can also be found in case of primary biliary cholangitis, children with neonatal cholestasis, etc. So there is a differential. But there is another ophthalmic finding, which is called as something which I'm not going to reveal the name because again, we incorporated that in your homework question, right? So my point is this KF ring is not pathognomonic of Wilson's disease, as it is also found in case of chronic cholestatic disorders such as primary biliary cholangitis and children with neonatal cholestasis. So Kayser-Fleischer rings are common ophthalmologic findings in case of Wilson's disease, first demonstrated in 1934. Previously, it was thought that they contain silver, but later in 1934, it was demonstrated to be containing copper. So KF rings are seen in most of the patients with neurological involvement from Wilson's disease. So that's an indication of neurological involvement. These rings are caused by deposition of excess copper on the inner surface of cornea in the descemet membrane. So we have excess copper because of mutation in a particular chromosomal location, which is coding for a specific protein, which is there in your homework question. So there is failure of excretion of this copper in bile. As a result, it's getting accumulated in the body and gets deposited all over, and also in liver, brain, eye, as you can clearly see. So this excess copper is being deposited. The interesting thing here is these KF rings do not cause any impairment of vision, but disappear with treatment and reappear with disease progression. So it helps us to evaluate the prognosis or disease progression as such. And as I mentioned already, KF rings are not specific to Wilson's disease alone. You can make a note of that point. Okay, right. So option A is right answer. Well done. Now let's move on to the third question where we incorporated assertion and reason. Let's see how many of you are going to get it right. D-dimethylglycine is employed in chelation therapy of Wilson's disease. Reason, D-dimethylglycine effectively chelates copper. So what do you think about this? Assertion and reason are true. Reason justifies assertion. Assertion and reason are true. Reason doesn't justify assertion. Assertion is true, reason is false. Assertion is false, reason is true. Or option E, both assertion and reason are false. So which one do you think is more appropriate answer? And let me give you a hint. D-dimethylglycine is also called as D-penicillamine. So which of the options do you think is more appropriate answer? In fact, in the therapeutic mode or in therapeutic section of Wilson's disease, we're talking about certain chelating agents which are important because these chelating agents, once they bind to copper, they help in urinary excretion, decreasing the levels of copper in the body, right? So is this the right chelating agent we're talking about? So you can just choose a more appropriate answer. So first of all, D-dimethylglycine is also called as D-penicillamine, as I said, is employed in chelation therapy because it effectively chelates with copper. Yeah, both assertion and reason are true, and reason justifies assertion. See, often we miss out this justification. Sometimes both statements can be true, but if there is no justification, you should be able to choose option B. But in this particular context, since there is effective chelation, we're employing it for chelation therapy, which is obvious. So D-penicillamine, which was introduced way back in 1956, is the first oral agent for treating Wilson's disease. This drug favors urinary excretion of copper. It's widely used because of low cost and considerable efficacy. Improvement in hepatic function may be observed as early as 2 to 6 months after initiation of treatment. And we have dosages which we'll be sharing in e-classes, but let me give you a summary. Initial recommended dose is 250 to 500 milligrams per day with 250 milligram increments every 4 to 7 days to a maximum of 1 to 1.5 grams per day in 2 to 4 divided doses in case of symptomatic diseases. Maintenance dose has to be lower, which is around 750 to 1000 milligrams per day, right? And since there is interaction with food, the gap between taking this medication and food should be 1 or 1 to 2 hours. Food inhibits absorption of D-penicillamine. This drug should be administered 1 hour before or 2 hours after meals. Okay, so as majority of you have rightly chosen, yes, it is penicillin derivative. Very good. Sidra, so both assertion and reason are true, and reason justifies assertion. Rishikesh also answered it as option A. Very good, Rishikesh. So let's go ahead with our next question. Those who have chosen option A, award yourself +4. False about Wilson's disease. So now we'll get opportunity to discuss about Wilson's disease in additional detail. So which of the following statements do you think is false? Copper is deposited in abnormal amounts in liver and lenticular nucleus of brain. Low levels of copper in ceruloplasmin in plasma are seen in case of Wilson's disease. Renal damage due to copper deposition, decreased intestinal absorption of copper. So which of the following do you think is false statement? So Wilson's disease, as we have been discussing, it's a very rare disorder, also called as hepatolenticular degeneration, as we have been discussing right from the beginning. And also, as you have seen the lab data, serum copper levels, ceruloplasmin levels are dropping in case of Wilson's disease. See, we're talking about excess copper, but still we're talking about low copper in plasma. The paradox here is the fact that even though there is excess copper within the body, it's not in the plasma. So that is something which we should understand, right? Because of increased availability in the blood, it's getting deposited in various tissues. So that is something which you should understand at preliminary level. So which of the following options do you think is a false statement? finding it challenging. In fact, options A and B can be ruled out because this is something which we have seen in the context, right? And also we have discussed it prior. So you can rule out options A and B. So that's a hint I can give you. So what about options C and D? So also there can be deposition of copper in kidneys, leading to renal damage. As a consequence, there is a loss of various nutrients, essential nutrients, including amino acids, peptides, hemoglobin, glucose, etc. So there is documented renal damage. What about intestinal absorption? Intestinal absorption is something which is increased in case of Wilson's disease by many fold compared to normal. Even though I couldn't exactly find out the reason, what I'm speculating is that because of low levels of copper, maybe is the body trying to compensate, or has it got something to do with CTR1 protein? I've come across a protein called high affinity copper uptake protein, CTR1, which is helpful in transferring cuprous ion or copper ion from the diet via the intestine into the blood. So is there any overexpression of the same? So the reason I'm not sure, but according to textbook information, there is enhanced or increased intestinal absorption of copper. And if any one of you can find out the exact reason why there is increased intestinal absorption of copper, I'll be glad to learn from you. So there has been documentation that the intestinal copper absorption is elevated by almost 5 to 6 times or 4 to 6 times higher than normal. So because you just said increased excretion of copper in bile, no, it's not happening. It's not happening in case of Wilson's disease. I told you the reverse of it. Because of mutation in gene located in a particular chromosome, the gene will be coming across in your homework question. Because of its mutation, right? It's basically copper transporting ATPase. There is altered protein. As a consequence, the excess copper, which has to be excreted through feces, through bile, right? It's not happening. So because of which there is accumulation, as we have initially seen. But here in this particular context, we're talking about intestinal absorption. So all of them appear to be true, but yeah, option D is a false statement because intestinal absorption of copper is very high, about 4 to 6 times higher than normal, right? And let me just elaborate on this. The gene that causes Wilson's disease located at chromosome 13q14 is known to code for a protein called copper transporting P-type ATPase. A mutation of gene associated with Wilson's disease results in deficient biliary excretion of copper. Let me repeat, deficient biliary excretion of copper leading to excessive copper accumulation in many tissues, right? I hope you got my point. So option D is right answer. Very good. So do award yourself +4. Now let's move on to the penultimate question. Copper is an essential constituent of which of the following enzymes? Catalase, tyrosinase, cytochrome oxidase, all of the above, none of the above. If you had carefully observed, I mentioned an enzyme already that is copper containing. So which one do you think is more appropriate? And also, as I mentioned previously, copper, which we obtain through diet, chocolates, macadamia nuts and all, normal levels are very much essential because normal levels are like copper has several normal functions. It is an integral part of several enzymes, which are essential for normal activities, and elevated levels when there is loss of balance, such as in Wilson's disease, altered metabolism, elevated levels can lead to generation of excess free radicals. Remember, copper can either accept or even lose electron. Okay, so elevated levels can lead to generation of free radicals, which creates a kind of oxidative stress. Remember, oxidative stress is to a reasonable extent okay, but an increased oxidative stress is harmful for living cells, living body, or life itself. In fact, if you observe the mechanisms of a cancer, right? If you observe any antioxidant food they're talking about, the objective of treating cancer, or the objective of antioxidant therapy, or the objective of taking a food such as green tea or food that is rich in these antioxidants is to reduce this oxidative stress, right? Uh, it's like fuel, isn't it? So oxidative stress has been implicated, as I mentioned, in several diseases, including Alzheimer's, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, uh, and whatnot, diabetes, etc. And if you carefully observe, we have something called as intermittent fasting or even fasting. Fasting or intermittent fasting is beneficial to a living organism. I mean, we're not talking about malnutrition or malnourishment, but fasting intermittently reduces this oxidative stress, because during fasting, your glucose levels drop. And studies have shown that, like, these oxygen radicals or various free radicals which are generated because of daily metabolic processes are eliminated under hypoglycemic conditions. But if you keep feeding yourself, it means you're just adding fuel to the fire, and aging happens very soon. So one of the anti-aging tips which we often hear is intermittent fasting or having food rich in antioxidants. So all of these are interlinked. So copper in reasonable amounts has a very essential role. So that's my point. But when it crosses the limit, right, beyond the normal, then it leads to enhanced oxidative stress, which is detrimental to the life form itself. Yeah, autophagy, very good. Aging, autophagy, excellent, Sidra. It seems you have done your homework. So copper is essential constituent of which of the following enzymes? All of the above, as majority of you have chosen. I think almost all of you have chosen. All of the above is right answer. So catalase, tyrosinase, cytochrome oxidase. So cytochrome oxidase, oxidase also called as complex 4. If you remember, it's there in your electron transport chain. So it has an important role in producing energy, copper-containing enzyme. And catalase, it's a key antioxidant enzyme in the body's defense against oxidative stress. Even this is copper-containing enzyme. And tyrosinase, as you know, in case of albinism, there is deficiency of this enzyme tyrosinase. So tyrosinase enzyme, which is located in melanocytes, also contains copper. So it's responsible for the first step in melanin production. So tyrosinase, I'm sure you know the role and its location. So all of these enzymes do contain copper, right? So consider this very, very important. Now so award yourself +4. And out of 20, so how much did you guys score? Do post your scores now. I would love to look into your scores. So maximum score out of 20, minimum score out of 20. And please include negative marking as well. So you have the following homework questions. So I've been dying to utter these words, but because these are incorporated in homework questions, I couldn't utter them previously in the context of explaining you things. But here you go. First and foremost, what is sunflower cataract? Does it appear as a sunflower? Shape of a sunflower? Do find out. And second question, can patients with Wilson's disease eat food which is cooked in copper utensils? Now they were talking about copper bottles. We're talking about copper utensils. What about, okay, normal humans? Okay, a body will take care of all the things. As we have been discussing, there will be excretion of excess of copper through bile, through feces. Okay, good. What about Wilson's disease patients? Can patients with Wilson's disease eat food cooked in copper utensils? And third, what is ATP7B? What is it? ATP7B. It appears like a secret code. In fact, in the process of discussion, I mentioned about ATP7A, if you remember. So what is this ATP7B? While discussing first question, I mentioned about ATP7A. So what is this ATP7B? So try to find out, right? Consider this, these three questions very, very important. So these questions are to encourage you to actively participate and engage in discussion. So try finding out the appropriate answers and get back through mail. We'll provide you key through mail itself. We'll evaluate your answers And if you go wrong, we'll provide you with the right key. So sunflower cataract, copper utensils, Wilson's disease patients, cooked food, and what is ATP7B, right? I hope it's clear. So these are some of the questions which I wanted to highlight in this case-based patients. And from next week, we'll also try to include clinical subjects. We'll also try to include, along with images, the radiographs as well in each and every session, right? So your feedback on these sessions is always welcome. If you want any additional topics, any improvements or any suggestions, feel free to contact us through mail at proudtobedentist@gmail.com, right? So weekend, and we have another 40 plus days towards NEET MDS 2022. And those who are planning to prepare for 1 year, 2023, you have 1 year time. This is just January. Remember, no matter at what stage of preparation you are in, the basic format always remains the same, the basic format of orientation. Whether you are at the beginning phase or in the middle phase or in the terminal phase of preparation, it's all about working hard, working consistently, and most importantly, believing in yourself. Repeating this in every session, it's become a kind of habit for me. But remember, each and every word has its own significance. Of course, we can all work hard. Consistency is what makes a huge difference. And most importantly, it's about self-belief, as I keep on reminding. And if you want to enhance your life, whether it can be personally at a personal level or at a professional level, just remember the word or term discipline. So if you have a disciplined lifestyle, everything will fall in place. It can be personal life, it can be professional life. Often we are sometimes lost because of so many distractions. Take my word, we have so many distractions possible. But if we can limit those distractions, right? And then make sure that we're living a more conscious life. How many of us have seen a sunrise recently? How many of us have actually taken a walk just like that? How many of us have actually seen the sky? So these are certain things which we are missing out greatly. And as a consequence, we are having that disconnect between us and nature. And we should understand that as a life form, we're all part and parcel of Mother Earth. So if there is disconnect, then whatever we do appears hazy, appears confusing. So biological rhythm and biological clock has to be respected. So just a disciplined lifestyle is going to take you a long way. Sleeping at a particular time, waking up at a particular time, doing things, certain routine tasks in a determined fashion. We have a concept called ikigai. So we'll come up with more details very soon in the form of a video. So after going through that book, after learning about this ikigai concept, the very act of brushing itself can be made a very more enjoyable and fun. The very act of doing anything for that matter, right, through mindfulness can be enhanced, and it will have a drastic impact on our personal as well as professional lives. So my point is, just remember the term discipline. And if you're doing certain things in a disciplined manner, waking up at a particular time, taking care of various personal things in a disciplined manner, will ultimately help you see the clarity of what you wish to achieve, both in your personal and professional life. It doesn't happen just like that in 1 day's time, but at least try doing any form of activity in a consistent manner, in a dedicated manner for 21 days, as we have tried out previously. It's going to make a huge difference. So for any further queries or assistance, always feel free to get back to mail 24/7. We're always there for you. So wish you all the best, love you all, and I'll see you on Monday, 9:30 p.m. IST in our upcoming case-based discussions. Take care. Rafi, please wake up. Please say good night. Yeah, Monica, have you gone through that book Ikigai? That's wonderful to hear. Okay, please say good night. Will you? Good night. I mean, the hair is all bushy, you can't see its face, but here you go. Please open your eyes, Toffee. Please open your eyes, Toffee. Good night.